name is Brennan Breed. I am Associate Professor of Old Testament here at Columbia Theological Seminary in Decatur, Georgia. This is the study in my house where I live, just about a block away from Columbia Seminary in Decatur, Georgia in the United States. And I am so grateful to meet you all digitally and to get to know you through this course. Thank you so much for deciding to come to Columbia Theological Seminary or to continue to be a student at Columbia Seminary in the midst of this trying and strange time. I have never lived through something like this, and I'm guessing you haven't either. So one thing to know about this course and about me is that I want us all to learn Hebrew, but I also want us all to be gracious with ourselves and with one another, because we are all living through a very strange time that has tested us all in different ways. So just know from me that what I want for you is I want your success in this class, and I want to help you learn Hebrew as well as you can throughout this time. But please trust me, I'm not here to get you. I'm not here to try to hurt you. I am just here to try to encourage you to complete your work of learning the Hebrew language as much as you can during this time. This is my first time teaching this class in an online format. This is my first time working with online quizzes, and there are a lot of things I'm doing for the first time. I'm guessing there are some things that you're doing for the first time too. So I promise to give you grace, and I promise to work with you if you promise to give me grace and work with me too. So let's all learn together. Let me actually open our semester in prayer. If we were in an in-person classroom, I would typically open every time we meet each other in class in prayer. I won't do that as much on these videos simply because I don't know where you are or when you are. You might be watching all the videos at once and so on. But just know that I will continue to pray for you and for our class throughout the semester. But let's open in prayer. Gracious God, we thank you so much for this time that you have set aside for us to be able to study, to learn, to soak in the ancient language of Hebrew. We thank you that you speak, that you are a God who opens your mouth and you speak to us, that you reveal yourself to humans, to people in particular times and places, people who speak particular languages, people with particular cultures. And we thank you that language allows us to communicate with each other even across differences, that language that allows us to express ourselves, and it allows us to hear and listen to others. Give us ears to hear the voices of those ancient ancestors of the faith who encountered you and who desperately wanted to communicate to those in the future who might listen who you are and what you are doing in this world. Give us ears to hear you at work in these ancient texts, in this ancient language of Hebrew, but also let us hear it anew in our own day. Meet us here, wherever here is for us. Meet us in our language, in our culture, in our own context. Open our eyes of faith, O Lord, that we might see you at work in the ancient world and in our own lives. Grant us grace and peace for one another and for the difficult language of Hebrew. Help us to yearn, to strive, to hear these sacred voices. Help us to treasure the very words that they used to communicate their encounter with you. And through it all, help us to know the Word. The Word became flesh. Help us to encounter Jesus in the midst of our work in seminary, not just here in Hebrew, but throughout all of our classes. And bless us with your grace and peace. Amen. So let me walk you through a little bit of this course. So this is Biblical Hebrew. If you have found your way into the wrong Moodle forum, now's the time to graciously back out and find whatever class you're actually looking for. But if you're looking for Biblical Hebrew, this is it. I have several videos here to introduce you to the course in general. There's this video, which is designed to help you understand how the course is going to work. The next video, Introduction Part 2, is a little bit about language. What is a language? We use them all the time, but we don't ask questions about them a lot, or at least I didn't before I started to study them. And then the third introductory video is about Hebrew. What is Hebrew? What is this thing we're studying? There's actually different kinds of Hebrew, ancient Hebrew and modern Hebrew and so on. So we're going to talk about what it is that we're studying in this class. Then there's also some content that has to do with the course goals, not just orientation for this week, and that is about the alphabet. So notice that there's introductory videos, and then there's the alphabet videos. So I'm going to walk us through the syllabus, which is posted on the Moodle site, and walk us through the first week of class and just kind of explain a little bit about the rhythm of the class and help you to orient yourself to the website. So I'm going to make my image here smaller and show you my screen on my computer. So I'm going to keep my face here just so you can see me, but I'm going to also show you here. There we go. I'm going to make myself float on top. There you go. So now you can see me and the syllabus. So this is a Word file for the syllabus. B505 Introductory Biblical Hebrew. This is posted on the website in PDF format. So this is fall 2020. It's an online course. It's the first time I've taught Hebrew online. It's not the first online course I've taught, so I know a little bit about it. But I am Professor Brennan. Just so you know who I am a Episcopalian, so I'm part of the Global Anglican Communion. I grew up in the great state of Colorado in the city of Denver, outside the city of Denver. I love the mountains and I love being outdoors, and I love nature. I love gardening and things like that. So that all comes, I think, from my time spent outdoors as a child. But my family moved to Washington, D.C. When I was fairly young. So I also count Washington, D.C. and kind of Northern Virginia as a home. My family still lives there, by the way, so I go to Virginia, not now, but usually when there's no pandemic, I'm in Virginia quite a bit. My family is also from Virginia, my wife, Catherine, and my two kids who actually are not from Virginia, they're from here. My two children, Frederick and Margaret Ann. Freddie was born here in Decatur, and so is Margaret Ann, and Freddie's 10 now, and Margaret Ann is 8, and they both attend digitally right now, but typically they attend the elementary school in the neighborhood where Columbia is. And just a little bit more about me. I went to Emory University for my PhD in biblical studies and worked with Carol Newsom, who's an excellent and wonderful biblical scholar. She is recently retired, but she worked in wisdom literature. And before that, I went to Princeton Theological Seminary for my master's in divinity, where I worked with Chunliang Seao, a great scholar of wisdom literature. Wisdom literature are the books of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and Job. A few of the Psalms are called wisdom literature. It's part of an ancient kind of language about wisdom and how to learn to be a wise person. So that's what I'm interested in working in. But also I work in reception history, which means I look at what's happened with ancient texts throughout time. Instead of just asking what did ancient writers mean when they wrote these texts that we call the Bible, instead what have people done with it throughout history in different religious communities. So that's a bit about me and what I do and what I'm interested in. So I am interested in many diverse voices who have used the Bible throughout history using different languages and cultures and so on. So that's all really, really exciting to me. You can see my email here, breedb@ctsnet.edu. Please feel free to reach out and ask questions. And contact me that way. You can see it says underneath here, digital office hours by appointment. Please feel free to contact and request. I'm going to host a weekly office hours on Zoom. There'll be a way to get there on the Moodle page, but it'll be Fridays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on on Zoom. There'll be a link on the Moodle page, and that'll just be every Friday. It'll be for you to check in with me, get to know me if you want to. You don't have to. It's all optional. But if that time doesn't work for you and you really need to talk to me about something, please feel free to contact by email, and we can set up a Zoom meeting if you prefer. So I am not the only member of the teaching team, though. We have 4 amazing preceptors. These are fellow students of yours who have succeeded at Hebrew in semesters previous and who have agreed to come back and work as fellow teachers alongside me who will be teaching you these parts of Hebrew. There are 4 preceptors. The first is Alfred Appia, and then Paul Burgess, Nicholas Carson, and Kristen Sommerfeld. Arranged alphabetically. You can see their emails here. Each of them will be running what we call a precept or a small group. These are meetings that will be optional, fully optional. This is an asynchronous class. You don't need to be anywhere or show up at any time to succeed in this class. But we also know that learning a language is difficult, and it really helps to have interaction, live interaction with teaching team members and with your colleagues. So we've arranged it so that there are going to be 4 different times daily, Monday through Thursday, that you can meet with a preceptor or a teacher live. It's all optional. You can ask questions, you can work on the homework together, you can ask questions about the material covered in the textbook or in these teaching videos. So there's lots of different things you can do in that time, but it will be fully optional. And I'm asking you to take a survey during the first week of this class. You'll see it on the Moodle site. I'm asking you to take a survey to rank the times, with 4 being you're very likely to show up and 1 being I can't make that time, that happen throughout the day. And this would be every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now, I know that everybody's schedule isn't the same every day of the week, but if there's 1 or 2 days that you could make a certain time, that would be great. It's available to you, and it'll be available on Zoom. And there's no penalty for missing that time. But those teaching team members, you'll also be assigned to one of the teaching team members as somebody that you can email or interact with, maybe set up individual Zoom meetings if that's possible, and work on your Hebrew as well. So those members of the teaching team are there also to help you alongside me. If we look at the syllabus again, we can see it's a semester-long course, an introduction to biblical Hebrew grammar, syntax, vocabulary, with an emphasis on reading and interpreting the Old Testament in Hebrew. Okay, so syntax, grammar and syntax and vocabulary. We might need to mention what that is for just a moment. Grammar is, in a way, the rules of the language. How does the language work? Each language has its own grammar, its own rules of the game by which the language functions. Syntax means the kind of order that the words go in. The vocabulary, that's the words themselves. So we have to learn the rules of the game. We have to learn the order in which things work, and the order in which to put the words, and how the different ordering of words creates different kinds of sense or meaning. And then we'll have to talk about vocabulary, and we'll have to learn some vocabulary, learn some words. So all those things together will help us learn how to read biblical Hebrew grammar, and translate biblical Hebrew into English and other assorted languages. We'll focus on, of course, translating into English here because that is a shared language for us besides Hebrew. So the point is for you to be able to read and translate the Old Testament. We have other classes here at Columbia Theological Seminary where we take that information about reading Hebrew and we move it more explicitly in the direction of interpretation and then into teaching and preaching and other uses in and for the church. So all to say that here we'll be focusing on language, but we'll bring up issues of translation and issues of use, issues of preaching every once in a while, but the focus is on trying to get the language solid so that we can build all those other skills and tools that come out of it. So the point, after completing this course, you'll be able to recall 300 of the most commonly occurring words in biblical Hebrew. It's a good start to a vocabulary. Hebrew has less words than modern languages do, so that you'll be able to read a lot of Hebrew with just 300 words. You'll be able to parse the most frequently used Hebrew verbal forms. A verb is a word of action. These are always the most complicated words in just about every language. So parsing means to look at a verb an action word, and understand who it's referring to, what time is involved. So is it past tense or future tense, and so on. So to parse means to understand how that word functions. So you'll be able to understand Hebrew verbs, which is difficult and takes its own course objective right here because it's hard. And also to competently read and translate basic Hebrew prose. That means narratives, stories. We're not going to go into poetry too much. We'll do a little bit with simple poetry. If you want to learn how to translate the Psalms very well, or the Song of Songs, we have specialized classes for texts like that are in poetry. Poetry is a little bit harder. But so we'll try to get you started with narratives or stories, like the story of Joseph in Genesis. And we want you to be able to translate with the help of a dictionary and a grammar. I am not going to teach you how to go to modern Israel and order food and get a hotel and get a taxi to come and pick you up and give directions to somewhere. We're not going to do conversational Hebrew. We're going to focus on ancient Hebrew, and we're going to focus on ancient Hebrew that you can read a text and understand it with the help of a dictionary and a grammar. A grammar is a textbook that is there to teach you the language that has charts and things. So I'm going to try to get you at the end of this semester to the point where using a dictionary and a grammar, you can translate simple Hebrew prose or narrative stories. We'll have other classes that you'll take afterwards where you'll be able to choose, hopefully, between some different types of Hebrew text to be able to read and translate, and that'll help round out your Hebrew. So this is about like the beginning, right, of your Hebrew journey. So we have 2 textbooks that are required for this course. I have them right here. This is the first year I've used these textbooks. There are some good things about them and some things that I would change if I could. It's important to know that there's no perfect textbook. We used a textbook for many years here at Columbia Seminary that was written by Chuliang Seao, who was my advisor and an advisor of Christine Yoder. Dr. Yoder is a professor of Old Testament here at Columbia Seminary as well. We love that textbook, but we've heard it's become increasingly difficult for students to learn on it. So with the first online version of this course, we're changing to this textbook, which is designed to be a little more readable on your own. So it's called Learning Biblical Hebrew. There are 2 authors, Carl Kutz and Rebecca Josberger, and they have put together a grammar. This is the grammar here. The grammar is to teach you the grammar. But you'll see listed on the syllabus different pages to read for different days and so on. The idea is that you can either read the assigned textbook for the day and then watch the videos, or you can watch the videos and then read the grammar. You can do it either way. But if you watch the videos first and then read the grammar, it might help you understand some of the concepts that the book introduces. From what I've read, there's a couple of issues. One with the notion of grammatical gender and a couple other things that we'll get to. But one of the things I like about this textbook is that the point of it is to get you reading texts quickly. There's 1 week, week 4, which is going to be a little bit of a challenge. There's just a lot to do on week 4. Just know that going in, because they want to get you up and reading texts, like full texts. Now, this textbook is linked to this workbook. Now, you'll notice if you open up this workbook, it opens the other way. There's also digital versions of these, of the textbook and the workbook available online. You can Google the name that is provided there in the syllabus, and you'll find it. But the workbook, if you have a hard copy of it, it opens what looks to American readers as the wrong way. That is, it opens right to left. That's because Hebrew is written right to left. It's it's like a cute thing, but this is how Hebrew books are actually written. They will appear to open the wrong way to people who are used to books printed in English. But it starts with exercises, simple exercises for each chapter. So here's like exercise 3A. These are simple exercises to do that are prescribed in the syllabus on which day you're supposed to do them. But then about halfway through on page, it's actually less than halfway through, on page 81, there begins a really great part of this workbook. And this is why I chose this textbook and workbook pair. That's because it translates, it's got a version of the story of Joseph. And this is the vocabulary that we'll start to work with. I'll explain how the vocabulary quizzes work in a minute, but just know that the vocabulary starts on page 81. It's all outlined in the syllabus about which pages to look at for which days. But so you learn some vocabulary, and then you try to read this text. This is all in Hebrew here. You can see up close. And they give you a simplified version of the Joseph story in Genesis. It's amazing. You're going to be able to read the entire Joseph story and about 3/4 of the book of Ruth while in this class. So this is one of the great benefits of this textbook. At the end of the textbook, there's a glossary, which is like a little dictionary. So you can look up words here. Here's the glossary, and it's on page 283. And it starts with Aleph, the first letter, and moves on and so on. So these are some really helpful parts of these books, and you'll spend some more time with those books. So just try to get familiar with how those books work, and that'll be helpful. There are also some textbooks that are not required, but they're recommended. I think they're a good idea, but you don't have to get them. The first is the Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. This is the critical edition. Critical, not meaning angry or upset or mean, but critical meaning with lots of scholarship. So scholars have created this text of the Hebrew Bible using the best ancient manuscripts that are available. And this is the gold standard for copies of the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament that we will use in scholarship. So there's a new version, the BHQ, but it's not done yet. So the BHS, this right here, there's lots of different versions of it. There's lots of editions of it. You can find it in small print and in large print, and it comes in hundreds of different editions. But as long as it says Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia, it's a good bet. We're not really going to use this too much in our class explicitly. There are online options for different Bibles to use if you want to start reading. Some of them are on the website, the Moodle site, which I'll show you in a little bit. The last recommended textbook is the BDB, or the Brown Driver Briggs Hebrew and English Lexicon, which I'm highlighting here on the page. This is the largest. It's got the most information in a Hebrew dictionary that also is affordable and portable. So it's about, actually mine's at the office right now, which I'm not allowed to go to, but it's about the size of this, the BHS, so it's a big book, but you can still carry it around in one hand. And it contains a resource of information, a wealth, a treasury of information about the Bible in it. And you can find copies in the United States for $20 or so used. But there's a digital copy of this for free because it's published a long time ago. So there's a free digital copy of this, an older edition that's still usable. That is on the Moodle site. So you can just download that and use it. Or now there are starting to be digital lexicons or dictionaries that some of them are pretty good. So none of them are as good as the BDB, but some of them are kind of good. So I'll show you some of those as well. Okay, so those are the recommended textbooks. So just these two, Coots and Joesberger, which both of them come in digital editions as well that you can download. Just Google the names and you'll find the digital editions, which you can get through Lexham Press, I think. Okay, so course requirements. What do you have to do for this course? So it's asynchronous, so there's no time that you need to actually be present on Zoom or Skype or anything like that. You can do all of this work whenever you want during the day, but we are going to have requirements that are based on the week. So every week there will be some assignments due, and you need to keep up with those. So you can do them any time of day during the week, and really on any day of the week, but there are certain requirements on certain days that you need to actually do, but you can do them during different times of the day. So we'll get to that, but I have two notes here. One is if you have a learning difference, that's something that you need to talk to the Academic Affairs Office about. Please get in touch with Ann Clay Adams in the Academic Affairs Office. I'm sure you've had contact with her through the registration process, and talk to her about accommodations for learning differences, which we are very happy to work with you about. We also have a note for students for whom English is not a first language. There are some provisions made for you. So you're welcome to take a look at that language, but the idea is that you're welcome to use a dictionary. If English is not your first language, you can use a dictionary to translate between English and whatever language you would like to translate into. So let's say Korean or any other language, even your second language and so on. If you can find a dictionary that you can translate English into your chosen language, you can use that to understand the grammar better, but also on quizzes and tests you can use that dictionary. But also if you need extra time for grammar quizzes or other exercises because English is not your first language, then you can let me know and we can talk about making accommodations. So I hope that's okay. And then next I have a little outline here of basically your week. What are the things that you need to do? So this is an important part of the schedule here. Here are your weekly assignments. So the first is watch the assigned videos and course content. So I'm going to have some videos on the Moodle site. I'll show you where that is in just a moment. But you watch those. A couple of notes here. The first 2 weeks include more video and less translation time for your schedule. And optional videos will often be provided for self-directed enrichment. So I'll include other videos you can watch, but I'll say optional. Okay, then after you watch some of the videos, then you read the assigned chapters in LBH, which is Learning Biblical Hebrew. LBH is this textbook, Learning Biblical Hebrew. And Learning Biblical Hebrew workbook is LBHW in the syllabus. That's what I've reduced those to. And so you'll read those chapters and study them. Try to remember the information that's in them as best you can. And I'll have some optional exercises to help you drill weekly concepts. And these are things that are good to talk about in your precepts or small groups that will be meeting optionally. The next thing to do is to learn the vocabulary assigned for each week and take a vocabulary quiz. The vocabulary will really begin on week 3. So the first 2 weeks of the class, you have to learn the alphabet and you have to learn vowels. So we'll learn those things first. How to read is what we'll learn first. But then once you know how to read after about 2 weeks, you'll learn how to read Hebrew, like just sound it out. But after that point, we'll begin to learn vocabulary. And then starting on every Monday of the week, there's a rhythm that we'll fall into after 3 weeks. So once we get to the third week, we'll start this process of starting each week on Monday with a vocabulary quiz. And you can take it at different times of the day. There's no time of the day that you need to take it. You just need to take it by the end of Monday, your time, if that makes sense, whenever that is for you. And then after the vocabulary quiz, then there'll be time to learn the new material and practice it. And then on the Friday of every week, starting in week 2, there'll be a grammar quiz. The grammar quiz is like questions about how to read Hebrew and how to understand different things. It's kind of testing you on the material we've learned that week. So we'll have a translation quiz on Mondays. A vocabulary quiz on Mondays and a grammar and translation quiz on Fridays. That'll be our rhythm. Vocabulary on Mondays, translation and grammar quiz on Fridays. And in between is when you do your work and you learn those concepts you'll be tested on every Friday. So the first few weeks, as I said, of vocabulary acquisition will take longer. It's like the learning new words is going to be hard, but then once you get better at Hebrew, it'll take less time for you to remember the Hebrew words that you're learning. So that's good. So after you work with your vocabulary a bit, then complete the grammar exercises in LBHW, or Learning Biblical Hebrew Workbook. That's this book right here. There are grammar exercises and there are translation exercises starting on week 4. So once we get the ability to read Hebrew and understand it and get some vocabulary, then we'll be able to start reading. And once that comes about, once we start to do those translation exercises, that's what we're going to focus on in our work time. So then complete translation assignment in LBHW. That's going to be the main thing you do every week for work for this class. Once we get to week 4, the whole point of this class is for you to read Hebrew, to read ancient Hebrew. So the translation assignments are going to be the centerpiece of what we do together. And this will be an important part of our kind of work life. So for these translation assignments, my goal for you is to work 3 hours a week on them. So this will be a 3-hour thing, and you will not need to finish the translations. I'm going to assign pages of translation, and the deal between you and me is that you work for 3 hours. I trust you. I trust that you're working hard because you want to learn Hebrew because you love Jesus. So I'm going to trust you with that. But I'm going to ask you to work for 3 hours every week on your translation assignment and do what you can. If there are multiple translation assignments for a week, spend 3 hours total on them. You can divide it up, do a little bit of the first one, a little bit of the second one, and so on. But between those, we're going to read most of the Joseph story in Genesis, which is amazing. Genesis 37 through 50. You're going to read a lot of that this semester. And then we're going to read Ruth together, which is going to be great. Then, on every Friday of every week, we'll take the grammar quiz. So I've allotted a bunch of time. It's about an hour. It changes a little bit. Each quiz is a little bit different, but it's about an hour for grammar quizzes, which begin when you open the quiz. And they won't hopefully take you the full hour to complete, at least most of them. The first 2 quizzes, you'll get practice quizzes. And this is true for the vocabulary quiz too. The first vocabulary quiz, you'll be able to take a practice quiz. You'll see it on Moodle. And the point there is you can take it as many times as you want just to get used to the format, right? And so I'm going to give you a practice grammar quiz every week. And it's going to focus on giving you an insight into what kinds of questions will be asked that week. There will often be other kinds of questions that I won't have practice for, but it's just to get you kind of used to it, used to the format of taking these online quizzes. So that's your week. Those are the things to do. Watch the videos, read and study the chapters in the grammar, work on your vocabulary, try to memorize some words. By the way, if you want to memorize words, you have to work at it. It doesn't happen by itself. So all of this requires some discipline. I can't give that to you. It requires your own motivation and discipline, and you got to want to do this. So my suggestions here are to write out the Hebrew words on maybe flashcards and things like that. There's also digital flashcards, but the act of writing Hebrew actually helps to cement it in your brain. So write out these words and try to remember them and write them out from memory. Try to remember them when you're walking or moving your body, because science tells us that when we try to learn things and remember them as we use different parts of our body, writing or moving, that this actually helps us to recall those words. We remember better if we try to remember in different settings and if we move while we try to remember. So when we try to learn new words, it's a really important thing. Or make little recordings of you saying them and just listen to them over and over again is another tactic there to remember vocabulary. Okay. And then you complete the grammar exercises, the simple exercises in the workbook, and then you, starting on week 4, work on the translation assignments, and then you take the grammar quiz at the end of the week. And that's Hebrew. You'll learn Hebrew if you do all those things. If you don't do these things, I can't help you. I'm sorry. You will not learn unless you do these things. It's a very simple equation. If you do the work, you may not learn everything or remember everything perfectly, but you will definitely pass the class if you work at this. If you don't decide to do these things, if you don't work them into your schedule, if you don't plan for them, then I can't help you. I can't do that work for you. So this is Hebrew is a different kind of class, and it requires just every single day making time, setting time aside for yourself to do these little tasks. At first, they will be hard and you won't like them. It's kind of like exercise, right? And at first, it'll be hard, you won't like it. And then after a while, it'll get easier if you commit to it. And then it'll get fun. And then you'll get kind of hooked on it. So that's the goal for us this semester. Okay, so just to talk about the categories and the grades and things, homework will be 25% of your grade or 1/4 of your grade. And as I say here, language acquisition requires constant repetition. You have to do this every single day. You have to do the work. If there is something that is keeping you from doing your language work, if you get sick, if there is something that happens to your family, if you are having some kind of crisis, please let us know. We want to help you. We want to work with you. We want you to succeed, but you have to communicate with us if we're going to help you at all. Please communicate with us. Let us know if you can't do the work, and then we will help you come up with a strategy on how to fix things. But if you don't tell us, if you don't communicate with us, we can't help. So as I said, starting with week 4, we're going to focus on translation exercises, and that will be our homework. Homework means turning in your work. You're supposed to kind of show some of your scratch work. There are different ways that we're going to do this, and we'll get to that later. But just to say, working on that translation and trying to turn it in some way and letting your preceptor or small group leader look at it and just see how you're doing. That's going to be a big chunk of your grade. We are not grading to make sure that every word is correct. We are grading to make sure you're trying, to make sure you're doing the work. We are not going to go through and fix every wrong answer because the answers are in the back of this book. The answers to the translation are in here, in the very end. You can cheat and just write them all as you want, but you're not going to succeed if you do that, right? So you can check your own work, but what we want to see, we want to keep you accountable, help you be accountable to yourself and to us, this community of learners, that we are all trying hard and doing the work. There will be ways to do collaborative translation assignments, but I'm ironing out the details with that, but I'll be back with a message in a couple of weeks to help you with that. So, lastly, vocabulary quizzes, which will be about 20% of your grade. As I said, starting on week 3, we will have vocabulary. So in week 2, we'll learn about vowels, and we'll start to learn words, how to read words. Beginning of week 3, we'll have a short vocabulary list. At the beginning of week 4, we'll have a longer vocabulary list, and we'll build our vocabulary from there. So on Monday, starting on week 3, every Monday after that until the end of the class, we will start our week with a vocabulary quiz. You can take it any time on Mondays, but you got to take it on Mondays. The first couple vocabulary quizzes, you can try them a couple of times and you can get a bunch wrong and then retry the quiz. But after the first couple weeks, you only get one try. The purpose here is to build immediate recollection of certain key words. That makes translation and reading so much easier and so much more fun. We ask you not to consult your lists, your resources, your books. Put things away. It's on your honor. We trust you, but we also trust that Jesus is watching. And we ask you to take the quizzes and try to remember. And you will get some wrong, and that's okay. It's okay to get some of these wrong. It's only 20% of your grade. And we do 10 of these throughout the semester, and there's 10 words each quiz. So you get some words wrong, and that's fine. You're going to survive. And there are also some ways to get some extra credit points, which you'll see throughout the semester. So it'll be okay. There are also 10 grammar quizzes. These are quizzes that focus on questions about the language, what we learned that week, and some translation exercises that are short. The grammar quizzes are also timed. They last about an hour, around that length, and they are to be taken on Fridays. So the idea is we start our week with vocabulary, and we build to grammar quizzes on Fridays. All right, if you have questions about how that works, let me know, but also you can look at the Moodle site. Everything's already on the Moodle site until at least halfway through the course. The course is built out, so you can see this pattern as it continues throughout the class. The lowest quizzes, both grammar and vocabulary, can be dropped at the end of the semester. So you take a quiz and you did really badly on it, it's okay. I've already programmed Moodle to drop a quiz for every single person, so you do really badly on one quiz, and that's fine. It's gone. Don't forget about it. Don't remember it. It's forgotten. But there will also be an extra bonus final quiz at the end of the semester. There will be all bonus points that will go to your quiz grades. So if you do get some poor quiz grades, it's okay. You don't have to worry. We are understanding, and we understand that the Hebrew will take some work, and no one is going to be perfect from the very beginning. But also we feel like feedback is essential for you learning what you know and what you don't know. That's why we do the quizzes, so you can see what you're learning, and you can also see what you're not learning so that you can fix that, right? So that feedback is helpful for us, but don't take it as a personal judgment. We aren't judging you for your Hebrew skills. We are simply trying to help you learn. Lastly, there's a final celebration of learning. Some people call these final exams, but I love final celebrations of learning instead. We're going to have, it's going to look a little bit like a final exam, but there's going to be 2 parts to it. One part will look a lot like a grammar quiz, and one part will be pure translation. So I'm asking you to, on your honor, not use your resources for this exercise. And it'll take place online between December 14th and December 18th. You can do it when you want during that time and turn it in just up to the 18th. So there's more information about that online as well. I already said last, but this is the after the last thing, the bonus points. You can get up to 5% bonus on your total grade for the class if you attend regularly the optional participation sessions on Zoom. So the preceptors, the teaching team, will host daily meetings Monday through Thursday. Now, you don't need to be at all of them, but if you occasionally attend those, you'll get some bonus points. These are bonus points. You don't miss points by losing, you lose points by missing these optional sessions. It is purely added to your grade. Nothing will be taken away if you cannot make them. But I want to encourage participation in these study sessions so you can earn extra points simply by showing up and engaging. You have to show up and engage, though. That's the thing. You got to speak and listen and ask questions and so on. So here's the grade calculation. That's how I'm going to calculate your grade at the end of the semester. Okay, I've got a bunch of other things that I think are important, but let me just say, let me transition to the Moodle page, which I've got here. Here is the Moodle site. And let me walk you through a little bit of our Moodle site here. I'm going to move my face over here so that I can show you this. Okay, so I'm on our Moodle page. Here's B505, Introductory Biblical Hebrew. This is our Moodle page. Here's my little picture of word art. This is the tree of life in Genesis 1, and it's got the text of Genesis 1. It's word art. This is the text of Genesis 1, the words of it, written into the shape of the tree of life. Pretty neat, huh? So then underneath we've got some course information. We have the preceptors and their email addresses. We have the syllabus, which you can click on and learn about the course more here. That's what I was just showing you earlier. We also have some course resources. We have some motivation from Dr. Miles Van Pelt, a famous teacher of Hebrew, who has 7 tips for learning Hebrew here. We have some Hebrew fonts. If you want to view the PowerPoint slides that I'm going to be using for my video presentations, you don't have to, by the way, but if you want to use those, you need to install these particular Hebrew fonts. Everything I put that requires a Hebrew font on Moodle, I'll also put a PDF of it, which means you don't need these fonts. So if you don't want to mess with the fonts, you don't have to. But if you want to be able to type in Hebrew on your computer, there's different ways to do that, but if you want to see the particular ways that I've typed in Hebrew on these slides, then you need these particular fonts. If you need help with that, there's guides online to using fonts and installing them and so on. But also, I might be able to help you a bit in the teaching team too. I'm not very good at fonts, so I'm not an expert in this. Next, we have a Quizlet deck, and I've put this in the week 4 as well, I think. But these are online flashcards for learning Hebrew. You can click on them and create different Hebrew flashcard challenges and so on, and then you can put this on your phone. So you're on your computer, so you can kind of carry this with you and so on. But I do prefer writing out the Hebrew words. That's actually a better way to do it. But I'll say. Audio files of the translation exercises if you want to hear Hebrew spoken aloud. This is all the Joseph story here. The vocabulary database for the textbook, if you want to have the vocabulary printed out in an Excel file, Microsoft Excel file, it's there. And there's a Microsoft Word document with all the translation exercises in Microsoft Word, so you can type and print it off or do anything else you want. It's what's found in here, but it doesn't have a lot of the exercises of the glossary. It's just the text of the Joseph story. But all that might be helpful for you. There's also some online language resources. This right here, the Bible web app, is amazing. You can set it up so that you're looking at WLC, which is the Westminster Leningrad. So this is a particular version of the Hebrew Bible. It's pretty close to this, pretty close to BHS, but it's not the same thing. It's not quite as good, but it's still good. And you can search by word. You can find where the same word appears in other places. You can look it up in the dictionary. So you can start with Genesis 1 and kind of see lots of information about the Hebrew words. It is incredibly helpful and a wonderful tool, so I highly recommend that, and just play around on that a little bit. Also, the Hebrew Lexicon 2-letter lookup. This is a free Bible dictionary. It's a Hebrew dictionary here, and Aramaic as well. A little bit of the Old Testament's in Aramaic, so that helps too. And then there's also a Brown Driver Briggs or BDB. This is the recommended dictionary. It's a free digital resource. It's a PDF, so there's a million pages to this thing, so it's really hard to use online, but it's possible to use online. You can put little sticky notes that you can jump to digitally for the different letters, where each letter of the alphabet begins. So those are some helpful, I hope, digital resources. So I'm going to go ahead and click week 1 here. So week 1, September 8th to September 13th, we're going to talk about the alphabet. The first thing to do is say hi to your classmates and introduce yourself. So start with that little form on the top. There's instructions on how to do that. It should be simple. You have to use Google Chrome or Firefox as your web browser, but that should be simple to do after that. And then every week I start with what to do for week 1, what to do for week 2, what to do for week 3, and these are the things you need to do. So watch videos for week 1 on the Moodle site. 2, fill out the short questionnaire for small group meeting times. This just lets us know, hey, when can you meet? If you can, it's optional. These are optional meeting times, but if it's possible for you to meet, when would you be able to meet? And then also read and study the Biblical Hebrew textbook. And then usually there's a specific thing, memorize the Hebrew consonants. So the consonants, the letters, memorize the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And then complete the exercises 1A and 1B in the workbook. And then write the Hebrew alphabet 10 times from memory. So we don't have a big quiz this first week. Our quizzes start the second week. But you can see from the page here, watch and discuss. This is what I always start with. These are the videos. So this video you can find here. So you're looking at that right now. And then this first week we have some orientation videos and then some videos on the alphabet. This is the only week with orientation videos. But then I have this forum every week, Ask Anything. And I really mean it, ask anything. Just ask the things that are on your mind, or you can talk about Hebrew. You can ask questions about CTS. You can ask, this is a place for you all to discuss too. And students, feel free to respond to each other, help each other if there's something that doesn't make sense in the videos, or if the videos aren't helping, or if you find something else that's helpful. This is a place for you to say whatever you want to say, or ask anything you want to ask about the course. You can also ask particular questions about how to use this stuff. What difference does Hebrew make for me? Or this word that I just learned, is this the word that's in this particular verse, and what do you make of it, and how does this change the way I'd preach it, and so on. We can talk about that stuff in that Ask Anything forum. Next, this is just in the first week, but if you have technical questions, especially at the beginning of the semester, this is a good place to ask them, and I'll try to answer them as best I can. But Rollin Guyden and Jeff Vaughn are our 2 technology experts here at Columbia Seminary, and I'll often refer questions to them. So that's the watch and discuss part, right? Watch these videos and talk about them. You don't have to talk about them. You're not required to post in the Ask Anything. You don't have to post, but it's available for you if you want to. Next is the practice part, and this is where I'll ask for you to turn in some homework. This will become the translation assignments. At first, it's just the kind of initial assignments in the Learning Biblical Hebrew workbook. But this first week, this is the only time you're supposed to do this, but there's a survey to find the times for small group meetings. If you can possibly meet for a small group, everyone please fill it out. If it's possible at all for you to make a small group time, when would you be able to make it from the 4 times available? That's a little survey there. And then every week after this, this is on there. That's the Hebrew homework turn-in site. So I'll tell you what to complete in the syllabus, and you just turn it in here. So any way you can, a photo, a picture, if they're with a phone, or a scan, or if you don't have access to any of those things, maybe you can type something into a Word document. Any way you can show us that you're working, that you can turn in digitally, would be great. If it's not possible for you, you can ask questions about that. I have a homework questions forum. If you have questions that are specific to the homework, you can ask them here in this forum, and maybe your colleagues and the fellow students and other members of the teaching team can jump in as necessary. But feel free to talk to each other about the homework here. I won't always answer all your homework questions because it's homework. It's there to work on. But I encourage you to talk to each other about the homework as well. If you know something, you can answer it there. So it's a good place to converse with each other as well. I'll have every week some optional practice, some charts, this online interactive Hebrew alphabet practice is pretty cool. It's just a website where you can play a game to try to learn the Hebrew alphabet letters. There are songs, There are flashcards. There are other videos that are trying to teach you things. I'll have charts. All of these things are optional. I'm not going to ask you to turn them in or ask you if you've done them. They're there for you in case you need them. This is additional practice. Then also, I'll always have a section of the website that has resources for this first week and every week afterwards. And there I'll post all of the PowerPoint files and PDF files of those PowerPoints in case you can't use the fonts and things. I'll post all of those for you to download if you want. You don't have to, but it's just there for you to use. Then also I'll post additional teaching videos. And those additional teaching videos are often videos from other Hebrew scholars that I know that are going to teach the same things, but just as I teach that week, but from different perspectives and using different tools. So, for example, this all about the Dagesh, about Blackboard Hebrew. I really recommend the Blackboard Hebrew stuff. It's really good. It's interactive. Not interactive really. It's animated, so it moves a little bit more than what I do, and it's pretty well done. But then also there's other teachers that'll kind of point in your direction. Sometimes other teachers will explain things differently than I will, and it'll make more sense to you, and that's fine. So if you find that there's another teacher who's got a better video series than me that you like more, feel free to just ignore my videos and watch those, although we may use different terminology and things. So you may be a bit confused, but we're all trying to teach the same language. And lastly, at the very bottom of every week, I'll also have some Hebrew exposure and culture. So I'll always just have some stuff for you to look at and listen to that just shows you a bit of kind of how Hebrew is being used in modern pop culture. So these are often meant to try to just get you to hear Hebrew and listen to Hebrew spoken. Ancient Hebrew and modern Hebrew are two different languages, but they're very closely connected. So exposure to modern Hebrew being spoken is going to help your retention of ancient Hebrew, even if you don't understand it. A big part of learning language is trying to get used to the rhythms and the cadences and the sounds that language makes. So even if you don't understand these songs that I'm showing you or the television programs, just spend some time trying to passively listen to them, and you'll find yourself learning more. Okay, so I'll just click on week 2 and just show you here. So watch and discuss. Week 2 we'll start our small group learning, but I haven't set that up yet because you have to fill out the survey first. So that'll be another part of this website that I'll put in. But again, here's our watch and discuss. Here's 2 videos for next week. There's the questions for the practice. Here's the place to upload your homework. Here's a place to ask questions about your homework. There's an online game you can do. There's an animated read-along of Genesis 1. There's some vowel flashcards that'll be helpful for learning your vowels, which is what we'll do the second week. And then that second week, we'll have a grammar quiz, our first grammar quiz. It'll be on Friday. I have a practice grammar quiz underneath it that you can take any day and just get used to the format of taking the quiz. There's just a few questions on that. There are many more on the actual grammar quiz. That first grammar quiz you can take twice, when the higher score will count. So take the first one and then learn some things and then take it again. Not everyone will get the same questions. So there are some randomly generated questions and the answers might switch around. That's a thing that Moodle does. But you'll see a lot of similar questions there. So in any event, it's just to give you some grace there when you're getting used to the platform and also just how we ask questions and test on things. And then here are the resources for next week. I've got the vocabulary list. This first vocabulary list is not in the workbook. All of these words on the first vocabulary list on Moodle will be duplicated in the workbook, so you're doing work that you will appreciate later. Your future self will be very happy with your present self for learning this vocabulary list, because then you won't have to learn those words again. They'll pop up in the lists later on and you'll say, great, I did it. But this is just to get you up and running with Hebrew words so that you start to remember a few easy Hebrew words, like the word for God, the word for human, the word for land, right? That's in that first vocabulary list. I've also posted an audio file of me reading these words aloud so that you can hear from me how they sound. Then also we have some resources, optional videos, and so on, and then a bit of Hebrew exposure and culture. And you can see that every week repeats this pattern. So here's our watch and discuss. Here's our practice, right? Our homework. Here's our assessment vocabulary quiz, which we'll take on Monday. our grammar quiz, which we'll take on Friday. We have some practice quizzes you can take as well, and then resources, and then Hebrew exposure and culture. So that's our class. I hope you're excited. I hope you might be feeling a little bit worried about what's going to happen over the next semester. I should tell you that most seminaries spend a year learning Hebrew, and we are going to spend 1 semester. That's not my choice. I would rather have a year to work with you on this. But there are some advantages to condensing our grammar study to 1 semester. And the biggest of those is that we get more time for translation later, which is, I'm guessing, the most interesting thing to you about learning Hebrew, is to work with biblical texts. So we get more time to work with biblical texts if we do it this way. It's going to require discipline. So if you can right now put some times in your calendar every day that you can work on biblical Hebrew, try to figure out during your week when you can work all of these things in. You're going to thank yourself for that later on. But another big thing is to remember why you're doing this. You're doing this so that you can read the Bible in the language in which it was written. You'll also, I hope, learn some Greek as well, but this is the Old Testament right here, written in Hebrew. If you want to encounter the Word of God in a new and different way, I promise you this is going to do that for you. You're going to be able to understand the Bible in a very different light. You're going to be able to encounter the actual voices of people who lived thousands of years ago and had such a powerful encounter with God that they did everything they could to try to write it down. A pricey, a difficult thing to do in the ancient world. But they wanted to communicate it to the future. And you have unmediated access to that if you learn Hebrew. So with all that, I encourage you to take a look at the second orientation video, which asks the question, what is language? Because we're about to learn a language here, and many of us have learned even more than one language in this classroom. But maybe we haven't stopped and asked ourselves, what is a language yet? And then after that, I'll ask the question, what is Hebrew? And after that, then we'll learn the alphabet, which I hope will be a little bit more fun. Well, I'm so grateful that you all are here, and I'll be praying for you every day. And I hope that you keep me in your prayers and your thoughts as well. And I look forward to encountering you throughout this class. Welcome to CTS. Welcome to Biblical Hebrew. And it's my honor and pleasure to guide you through this.